Well, as Chris Berman would say, let me be the first to wish you a Happy New Year. Happy 2026. 2026, every year since I was born and was cognizant of the years changing, it always seemed odd to me, that next day where you're going, hey, it's not, whatever it is. And I was really used to 2025. Thought that was a cool year, you know what I mean?
But at least you don't mess up writing checks anymore because we don't write checks
That's
anymore.
right. Yeah, that's where you'd always catch yourself. You'd be like, man, dang, I keep writing the same year. But now, yeah, here we are, another year older, another trip around the sun, whatever they say. And a cold new year for us, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
Woo. I went outside. It was like, oh, boy, we're not in Florida anymore. But it felt so good.
It's too bad the Stadium Series game at Raymond James Stadium isn't
this weekend, right?
January 1st instead of February 1st.
Now, one of two things are going to happen for that February 1st day, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be buckets of rain, which I don't know what you do about that. Or it's going to be so cold. It will be like, of course you can play down here in February. February can get
the rain
cold
would be
down
a
here.
problem. The rain would be a problem. Cold is fine.
Cold is fine, yeah.
Even the heat's not that bad. The humidity,
I still don't know how they're doing
humidity is what kills it.
Is it humidity?
Oh,
yeah. Okay. I still don't know how they're doing to do it.
They're erecting kind of a tent thing over top of the rink that they can remove, I think, 6 hours prior.
Okay. All right.
That, they could take it down sooner if depending on the weather, but if not, they'll be prepared for it. So,
but the elements during the actual game could affect it, right? Could affect the ice.
Yeah, rain and stuff like that absolutely could. Yes.
Yeah.
Snow less. Much,
so
but
weird.
We don't
to
get
me.
that here. So
we're so looking for tickets to go to that thing though. Like the girls, they love the Lightning, especially my youngest Alexandra, and she's got the the series, their series jerseys or whatever. They're so cool. Their
my kids got them for Christmas as well. So
yeah, we got the hoodies, all that. So pretty cool stuff. So yeah, that'll be fun, I think. Or it could be an absolute disaster. I don't know, because I usually don't sit down in those hard seats, except for Taylor Swift, in which case I stood for 3.5 hours. So,
well, the game in Nashville was a blast.
Was it?
And that was 4 years ago when the Lightning played up there.
Now, it was cold up there, though, right? I mean, cold
Yeah,
enough?
It was like in the 40s or whatever.
Coldish. That's all you need.
Yeah. But it was a blast. There must have been 20,000 Lightning fans up there.
I saw that. I remember that game, yeah.
Yeah, it was a blast. I mean, going down Broadway, hanging out the night before the game, then after the game, and that it was absolute blast.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be great. I just that's the diciest month for weather down here that I as I've lived here my whole life that I recall is that February it can be brutally cold, or you can feel like it's summertime. You do get some rain. You definitely get some rain in February.
Well, we'll have an outdoor game, and then like a week and a half or 2 weeks later, spring training will start. So
how about that? Yeah, that's
we're not that far away from spring training.
I know. We're not that far away from the Super Bowl, as it turns out.
Well, I mean, we're entering the final week of the season, so we shouldn't be.
I know. I can't decide whether this season went fast or slow. I think fast for me. Of course, all the years go fast now, right? As you get older.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The days are long, the years are short, or whatever. But it did really seem. It actually feels, because of the way the season played out, it feels like two totally different. Like I've covered the same team, but two totally different seasons. You know what I mean? Like,
it's been several seasons of hot starts, cold middles, except this year they didn't get hot at the end.
Right. They usually came back to to getting hot again, but hotter, right, than they had been. 3-1, but then you start 5-1, 6-2, right? And the way they were being touted, the way they won it with last second comebacks and that sort of thing with Baker Mayfield and 4 of those wins. And, the thought about him being an MVP, and then, Jalen McMillan could be Rookie of the Year, and Todd Bowles and all this. And so there was so much hype and so much coverage of the team early. And then just the abject collapse, like we've never seen. It's pretty rare for a good team, or at least a team, that jumped out like that, to have that sort of a losing record. I can remember
if they lose this weekend, they will go from 6-2 to 7-10.
Wow, that's freaking hard to do.
That's very hard to do.
I mean, the only thing I can compare it to, and they weren't a good team, is when Raheem Morris, his first year was a disaster, and for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is they hired his coordinators, and then um, you know he had to fire the offensive coordinator 10 days before the start of the regular season, and then 10 weeks into the season, fired his defensive coordinator, and they were, I think, 2-14 that year, I believe. The next year they started out, and Josh Freeman's a quarterback, and they go 10-6. They missed the playoffs by some tiebreaker, but they go 10-6, and that was when Raheem said it was a race to 10, and then when he won 10 and didn't get in the playoffs, he said I should have said a race to 11. But so then they start the next year, so they're 10-6. Start the next year 4-2, like a solid 4-2, with wins in the division over Atlanta and New Orleans, I believe. And they go to England, I think, to play, might have been New England or Chicago. I think the Bears. But they go to England, and they go for like a week. Like, it was crazy. Like, they were there from, like, left on Monday and so on. And that was a team that was full of, shall we say, guys they took chances on. And character was not high on the scale at that time, but you had, the Aqib Talibs, who, I like Aqib now, but at that time he had some issues. They took a chance on LeGarrette Blount. They took chances on Kellen Winslow Jr. They traded for, like, some less than filtered guys. And they were staying out till 4 a.m. and that sort of thing. And they got beat, and it was the first of 10 losses in a row. So that was about the most, like, now I never thought that when they were 4-2 that it was sustainable. Like, it was a solid 4-2 with 2 wins in the division. They were 2-0 in the division, but I can't say I saw them losing 10 in a row, but I didn't know that they were going to, maintain that sort of pace. But to go 10-6 and then start 4-2, and then lose 10 in a row is hard to do. Like, it just, you're gonna fall into one there somewhere, and they didn't. They lost 10 in a row, and of course Raheem was fired. So that's the biggest, like, flip flop. But 4-2 is not 5-1. It's not 6-2. You know, and it's not the way they did it. Like, there was a feeling about this team that, like, hey man, just wait till they get healthy. Like, they're doing this with a patchwork offensive line, and um, Godwin's in and out of the lineup, and then Mike goes down. Like, you kind of had this sort of, well, the cavalry's coming feeling, and then it just started getting bad, and it's been downhill. And even now, having watched that game, yesterday between the Rams and Atlanta, and of course, the Atlanta victory crushes the Bucks, because now, and the NFL schedule makers, by the way, screwed this up. This is not how they would do it, or should have done it. Like, to have the Bucks play Carolina, right? And if the Bucks win, Carolina or the Bucks won't know if they're the champions until after the next day, when New Orleans plays
Mhm.
Atlanta.
Yep.
It should be at worst concurrent. Those two games should be played at the same time.
The
Uh,
problem is that they had the Falcons on Monday Night Football instead of on Sunday,
that's right.
and they couldn't wait
Mhm.
till Monday night to put the schedule out.
Well,
I mean, I suppose they could have, but they don't want to. They want to,
they wanted to, yeah.
because
They wanted,
for teams that have a Saturday game, you don't want to know Monday night you're playing Saturday. You need to know Sunday night, because your week changes.
yeah. I suppose that's true, but they still could have scheduled. They could have just gone ahead and scheduled that game between Atlanta and New
Yes.
Orleans at the same time as.
Except ESPN has an exclusive window on Saturday, so you couldn't have two games there at the same time. The Saturday one
Oh, okay, I see
they're like
it.
national games. They're
So the Bucks
exclusive
would have
windows.
had to play on Sunday.
They would
and
have had to put
moved
it
that
Sunday
game
at
to
4:25.
Saturday,
They would have put
that's-
it Sunday at 4:25.
Yeah. Well, in
But
any case, I think they screwed it up. I don't think you should have a.
well, I don't think they ever counted on the Rams losing to the Falcons.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they're in the game.
Yeah.
you know, you sound like my editor back in the day when the Bucks went to play Philly, where all their seasons went to die, and there was no week in between Super Bowls. That one special year, and
Mhm.
so we're up in Philly, and the Bucks win, and we're making plans for our Super Bowl coverage. He's like, yeah, I really didn't plan anything because I didn't think they had a chance. It's like, well, they're in the game. I mean, they're here. It wasn't like they weren't playing in the game. So but I suppose
It's
probably
not
the
like
end
Philly opted out of the playoffs and then
right.
and then like Notre Dame opts out and then someone else jumps in. I mean, it wasn't that.
Right. Somebody was going to win this game. What if, I don't know, man. It's funny to me that it's come down to this, and the most Buck thing ever, particularly with this year, would be for them to win and, have to wait around all day Sunday and then, at 4:00 or whatever on a walk-off field goal or something.
I told you what I thought would happen is that the Bucks will win.
Mm-hmm.
Then Sunday, the Saints and Falcons will go to overtime just to prolong it for 10 more minutes.
God.
And someone will hit a walk-off field goal.
Yeah.
Whichever team, I don't know. But
yeah,
just to prolong it.
Oh, it's going to come down to the wire. To me, that game will be like very close. Just the fact that I have to sit there and watch that, and everybody else in Tampa has to too, and the players and whatnot. They may not. I mean, it could if the Bucks lose. Obviously, on Saturday, it's a done deal. But just the other thing is, the only reason they're in this position is they needed one more victory, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Like you lost to the Dolphins, man, and not just the Dolphins,
you lost to the Saints. You lost to the
Falcons.
Yeah.
You had a 14-point lead on the Atlanta Falcons, who committed 19 penalties accepted. 14-point lead on a team that committed 19 penalties, and you walked out of there not winning that game. 3rd and 28. 3rd and 28. As Mike Evans, started yelling on the way off the field. Like, you win that game. None of this is a discussion right now. You just win, you're in. Get your 9 wins, it's over. It's incredible how many opportunities they had to do this. And Todd Bowles talked about it, when we were out there on Wednesday. It was just like, yeah, we put ourselves in this situation. Yeah, you did.
Yep.
You sure did. Mm-hmm. And it's incredible to me because you can say, well, okay, Atlanta's got some talent, right? But John Robinson's a load. Like he's Barry Sanders at this point. So you can see the talent on the Atlanta Falcons. They were kind of underachieving and got off to a bad start and, changed quarterbacks and all that. The New Orleans Saints, what? With Tyler Shuck, no way you should have lost to that team. And then the Miami Dolphins. I'm sorry. They A-Chain is a good running back.
No question.
But they benched not one, but their 2 top quarterbacks. Like, if you lose to Tua, I'm like, okay. But they benched the guy, and they played a rookie, and not just a rookie, but a 7th-round rookie who had only started one other game. And he threw for almost 150 yards in the first half, and they just shut him down the second half. They didn't need him. And you lost to the Dolphins. After driving down the field the first time you had the ball and scoring a touchdown, you couldn't score another touchdown after that. Like, it's mind-boggling to me. And so many mistakes and just, the turnovers, the interceptions, the broken plays, busted coverages, just all, whatever it took, you were not going to win that game. Like, you just were not into it any way you needed to be into it. And yet, if you'd have just taken care of business after all the screw-ups, all the losses, you just go to Miami and win that game by a point, walk-off field goal, whatever, right? Hell, they lost by a field goal and it was blocked, right, at the end of the first half. And if you just win that game, then you just have to win on Sunday and you're the champs. And everybody goes, well, they backed in, but okay, they won 2. They, 9, it's a new season. Let's see what happens. Mm-hmm. But instead now you're in this, going to have a losing record no matter what. Going to have to wait if you win. Have to rely on somebody else. It's just, it is the worst since I've been doing this. It has to be the worst collapse I've seen of a football team. There's nothing. The Bucks went to the NFC Championship game in 99. 99. In 2000, they were 8-8, right? They weren't, you know, 7-9, but they were 8-8, and they destroyed Cincinnati in Cincinnati, and that game was at 1 o'clock on a Sunday. And they got on a plane not knowing whether they made the playoffs or not because they had a chance to make it at 500. But the Bengals, was it the Bengals? No, it was
No, they beat the Bengals, so
they beat the Bengals in Cincinnati. The Cardinals were playing the Chargers, and they needed the Chargers to win for the Bucks to get in at 8-8 because the Cardinals were in the NFC and they were in the contention. And the Cardinals, Chris Jackie hit a field goal. You can look this up. Hit a field goal as time expired, and the Cardinals went to the postseason with Jake Plummer, I think, as their quarterback, at 8-8 over the Bucks because of NFC record or something like that. Some tiebreaker that they had, and they found out about it on their way home on the plane, like 7:30, 8 o'clock that night. And that was the last. Like there were so many expectations for that team, right? Because they had been in the NFC Championship game the year before,
mhm.
and they came back and they just kind of 3-4 dug their way out, couldn't really get over the hump, and got to 8-8 in the last game, but still could have made it. And very few teams can make the playoffs at 8-8. But they could have, and then they didn't. And that's the closest I can remember, like the expectations not meeting sort of what they needed to be or should have been. This one though is in its own category, and honest to goodness, for me it's too early to really assess, nor have I really talked to the right people yet. I'm kind of waiting because I feel like the Glazers are probably waiting to see how this plays out, right? Like it's a different picture if they do get in the playoffs, win a playoff game, host a playoff game. You don't know, right? Like
I don't think they know what they're gonna do.
and I mean I imagine they do know,
I think they have an idea, but I think they want all the info
but
yet first.
I think it can be changed. I think their minds
Mhm.
could be changed based on I think every game matters at this point. So if they were to win the division, if they were to get in the playoffs and have a home playoff game, you feel better about that financially for sure. If you win a playoff game, then you're like, okay, well, um, you've taken a step. But uh, the more I'm over there, and I'm not talking to the people I need to talk to just yet, the more I get a sense that they're not going to make a change to head coach. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong as rain. I mean, I just finished this documentary, this 50-year, and you can't watch that without thinking the Glazers get to a point with a coach, and as soon as they think he's not going to get him over the hump, they make a change. Now, those changes for Gruden, I would maintain, was not about winning. It was about, I think personally, it was about finances.
Yep.
And the reason they went away from John was because he was going to always chew them up and ask for free agents, and they knew it. And they had 3 uncapped years, and they were going to maximize their ability, to take advantage of that. Never before since free agency um, has there been that opportunity, and they took advantage of it, and that meant we're going to draft and develop, which what team doesn't? But they got rid of all their veteran players, their expensive veteran players, and they kind of went with the younger guys, which frankly meant cheaper. Um, I think there's some of that now. I'm not going to say that they're not trying to win or they don't think they can win, and clearly, every team wants to draft and develop and keep their guys. But it feels like to me when your only guy that you sign from outside is Hassan Reddick on sort of a below market deal, if you will, at
Mhm.
14 million, and then the other free agents deals you do are your own guys, Gedeke and Zion McCallum and such. That's not going for it. Going for it is what they did with Tom Brady. If you want to know what going for it looks like, that's what going for it looks like. This team this year, as an organization, they did not go for it. Now,
I would agree.
they may have said that we have really young, talented players.
Mhm.
We think they're all going to take another step, and we're fine with the Chris Braswells, and we're fine with the Yaya Diabis, and we're fine with Tyke Smith and Servassier Dennis, and they could be just wrong on some players, and then the injuries obviously have been a big story this year for them. But at no point do I think that if you're in that front office or you're in ownership, I don't think you can look at this and go, man, we did every single thing we could do to make this team better, right? Now, coaches have an input. They may be telling you that they're good there, that they got the right combination of players, and they're going to develop these young guys, and you're going to be fine. Like, I don't know what conversations there were, beforehand. But just looking at the team, anytime I see a team with a ton of young players on it, right? They've done this before, this very same ownership. When every year Jason Light, and for good reason at times, has been touting the fact that, well, this many guys off of this draft class made the team, and this many guys off that draft class. And, the last 3 years we've had all but 3 or 4 players make this team. Like, it sounds great. And in some cases it is great.
If you're
But
winning, it sounds
overall,
great.
right, that's the thing. Overall, what it is fundamentally, okay, is a bunch of players on rookie deals, okay, which means you're not paying the money that you would pay for guys who aren't on rookie deals, right? Free agents, guys, your own guys that have made it to free agency and gotten bigger contracts. So when you have a young team, young means something else to owners. It means cheap. It means lower payroll. It means rookie contracts, and it's undeniable that that's what this team is. This team is not paying, it's paying its own stars, the Chris Godwins and Mike Evans and such. Baker's up to 30. He's still not 50 million, right? Like, if Baker Mayfield becomes a 50-60 million dollar quarterback, okay, well that's that's an enormous investment. It's still pretty big at 30 or 33, but it's not what it could be and what it is on other teams. So they've kind of had it both ways a little bit. And I think for that reason, the Bucs have to look at it and go, well, it's not like we really went out there and went for it like we did with Tom Brady. In fact, I think some of those Brady years are still something that they're paying for in a sense. But should they have lost this many games after a 5-1, 6-2 start? No, absolutely not. Like, the game, you can look at the games themselves. You can see what happened in those games. You can see the lack of execution. I've got 3 fourth quarter interceptions the last 3 games, that absolutely killed them. And a big part of it, and one of the things that we're going to look at a couple of things, going into this week, and that'll be players that may not be back just for virtue of, where they're at in their careers. But also looking forward. And one of those guys I got to look at is the quarterback, is Baker Mayfield, who will be going into the final year of his contract, much of which they paid him in advance before the year. And my personal belief is that Baker has not played well during this stretch, but I also think that there's an element of injury to it. I think part of the reasons why he's gotten worse is that he's continually compounded, his play with injuries. And so he's on the injury list again with yet another injury, a different injury. And he was limited in practice if they had practice. This is a projection because, again, it was Tuesday, and typically players are off on Tuesday because you got a Saturday game. They couldn't be, but their bodies aren't back. So it was a walk through Tuesday, which I also think all these walkthroughs are hurting them, but that's another deal. So these are the list of injuries that Baker Mayfield has had, just that's been on the injury report, right? With no real context for severity and that sort of thing, at least in this list. Week 3, foot/toe. Okay. That was the week after, I believe that was a week after the Houston game, because Houston was week 2 and he was limping terribly. I would say his knee was hurt then, but they got him down as a foot/toe. Week 4, right biceps. Affects your throwing, man. You got a bicep strain that can be dangerous. Week 5, knee/right biceps. Week 8, okay, you go 3 weeks where you remember you didn't run for very much, kind of stayed in the pocket, whatnot. Week 8, knee. Week 10, knee, and then the oblique. The oblique, I think, really hurt his throwing. I think it took velocity off the football. I watched him struggle to play in a game after that oblique injury. I guess he got sick one time in week 11. Week 13, that's when he hurt his shoulder, right, with the Rams, right? So he stayed on the injury list with the separated shoulder week 13, 14, and 15. And then this week, he's down for a knee. Recall him limping in that game last week, and also a right shoulder. Right shoulder. So now you get the left shoulder has popped out, and now you have a right shoulder injury to go with it. It has to have affected him. This list of injuries as they compile, and I know it can sound daunting because a lot of guys are hurt in the NFL, but just watching his play, watching his throwing, the lack of velocity, the ball placement, like it just tells me that the guy's hurt. And if this were hockey, we would go to one of those press conferences the day after, and they start pulling out video and saying, "Well, this MCL tear, this ACL, this," I think it would be like that. It's not probably going to be, but there's a lot of injuries there that we probably don't even know, right? Those are just the ones that they list kind of banally because they're told to do it without any explanation. So I think he's hurt. I think it's a big reason for his performance and why it's started to regress. And he's got to overcome that somehow, and start playing good football again. And some of his decision making's been bad, but that happens when you press. So we'll see, man. It's I was listening to Dave Canales, and he was like, we're blessed. We got a championship opportunity, and and for them, to win the division, even at 8 and 9, um, that's a big deal. It's been a long time since Carolina has been in this position because it was the Saints for 4 or 5 years, and the Bucks after that. So long time coming for Carolina, and it would be a huge thing for Canales to get this team, even with a sub 500 record, into the playoffs. It'd be a really, really big deal. All right, well, it is a new year, but if you got kind of the post-Christmas blues, I got a place for you to go. Maybe things didn't work out for you and your loved one on Christmas. Go see our friends at Breitling Boutique. That's right, International Plaza Mall. Remember where they had the Santa display? Yeah, second floor. That's where you're going to find the Breitling Company. They've been making Swiss watches now for over 140 years. They've been in International Plaza for going on 6 as we speak. And you want to go there and spend some time. They're used to dealing with celebrities, professional athletes, but believe me, you're going to be treated like a celebrity that you are. Spend some time, have a drink, let them tell you about their great watches. For the men, the Chronomats, the Navatimers, ladies' watches as well. These are sports watches, extremely durable, really gorgeous, and you get to choose, or your wife or girlfriend gets to choose from just an array of different colored wristbands. But what you'll notice on the outside of the store is a display with those 3 letters, NFL, and that's the NFL collection that Breitling Boutique has now. It's limited in its scope. It's while supplies last, but there are 32 NFL teams, and they have made 32 different team watches based on the color of the watch, on the face of the team colors, of course, and the logo. And these watches are collector's items, man. They're just spectacular. I was by there the other day. They had the Jacksonville Jaguars watch, which, if you know the job Liam Cohen has done, they should buy him those and then give them away to the team as well. And then the Buccaneers team watch. It's really a cool place to go and a great place to shop. Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. When you go, please let them know that you heard about it on Sports Day Tampa Bay. All right, we got some mailbag questions before we get out of here. Let's hit a couple of these.
All right, Michael tweeted us. He says, I thought the Bucs were keeping the Liam Cohen system for continuity. This offense doesn't resemble the Mike McDaniel offense either. What playbook is Josh Grizzard using?
It's a great question. It really is. I'm not sure. There obviously are the biggest element in terms of its verbiage and stuff like that, and concepts. A lot of outside zone runs and things are sort of a carryover from the Rams offense, from the Cohen offense. So they didn't have to change, the way they communicate. Now, I always say this, there's 26 letters in the alphabet, 27. What is it? I haven't added it up
26.
lately. So 26 letters in the alphabet. Okay, they're all on my keyboard. It's not the letters. It's just the order that I hit them. right? If I hit them in the right order, I could win a Pulitzer Prize. I have not yet done that, but other people have. But it's the same keyboard, right? So what I'm saying is you could have the same offense, right? But there's nuance to calling plays, right? To setting plays up, to understanding personnel, to executing what plays can you execute versus what's just in your playbook. And I think that Cohen has struggled with some of that this year. What's the game plan against Carolina when you go up there? You want to run it 30 times. Okay, great. What else is not happening when you're doing that? So, it's getting the ball to your playmakers, and he's been without many of his for most of the season. But now that he has them back, is he really doing a good job getting it to Mike Evans or getting it to Chris Godwin? And, there's a lot of mouths to feed all of a sudden. What happened to Bucky Irving? I mean, Bucky Irving was so frustrated, he's yelling at the offensive line, and Tristan Wirfs, who's not playing, had to step in and be mediator, you know? Um, and I mean, Bucky was a huge explosive running back for you a year ago, and I think he had something like 9 carries for 19 yards the other day, neither many attempts or success when he did run it. So there's a lot of frustration right now. The play calling has not been good, at least in terms of what they're able to execute, and they've left a lot of plays out there. So, I think it's just a case of a first year play caller. I don't think it's that they reinvented the scheme, and you don't know what guys think until they're gone. I mean, you know, we thought Canales did an okay job until you look at it and they couldn't run the ball. They were last in the league. And then he leaves and you find out that he wasn't a good play caller. Like people, didn't particularly like his offense because, he wasn't quick enough to adapt. They couldn't get out of bad plays. They went for continuity this year, and like we've talked about before, what are the odds that the Bucs were going to go 3 for 3 with coordinators, much less the best guy that they could find happened to be in the building at the time, right? So there's a lot going on there, but it is from a terminology standpoint, from a conceptuality standpoint, it is closer to or a sort of a fragment of what they had done the previous year or two, and so there was continuity, and that would really be the only reason you would hire a Josh Grizzard. Like, we talked about this. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. What are the odds that the guy who's the best person for the job or girl just happened to be in your building after you lose that person? They did not do a nationwide search on this job. They looked inward. They had their guy. He was their third down guy. He'd been here, bright, Yale kid, all that. And it to my way of thinking, and look, he was more hamstrung than Canales or Cohen were in terms of injuries. He didn't have any offensive linemen at one point, and was actually winning. But I don't think that he's had the kind of year they hoped he would as a play caller or as an offense. It's undeniable. And yet he's had way more injuries than those other guys had to deal with. So a good part of that is just he didn't have the players. But now he does, and you still saw, whether it was against Atlanta, whether it was against Carolina up there or Atlanta last week, I don't know what they're trying to do. I swear to God, I don't know what they're trying to establish. I don't know what their bread and butter plays are. They're just kind of reaching. They're just kind of all over the map, So it's not been a good year overall. Like I don't know how Cohen or Liam Cohen or Canales would have done under the same circumstances, and we'll never know, right? Because they didn't have that many injuries.
Yep.
But I do know this has not been good. It's not been that good.
Well, Steve follows up with a question. He says, assuming Todd Bowles keeps his job, does Josh Grizzard get fired this offseason? He struggled this season. The offense didn't get better as it got healthy. Baker has blame there, too. Would the Glazers sacrifice continuity on offensive scheme for a more experienced offensive coordinator?
It's a great question, and I don't have the answer to that. I would think that if you keep Todd Bowles, you're going to have some fairly dramatic changes on the coaching staff, in my opinion. I think most of it will be on defense. You've just got some really old guys over there, and old isn't bad, believe me, being an old guy myself. Um, but I think, you know, that sometimes the message can be delivered a different way. There's a relatability factor, maybe. But I mean, you got guys that are legends, right, as players and coaches, guys like Kevin Ross, and I'm not coming for any specific jobs. Clearly, I think, the special teams is a situation they would have to visit. But I think you would see changes on. And the funny thing is, when Todd took over, he kind of inherited the staff, but after the first year, he had no trouble dumping a bunch of offensive coaches. He kept all his guys. Like, he kept his guys on defense. And then Clyde Christensen essentially got fired. And, the offensive line coaches went with Canales and, so on and so forth. But he had no trouble getting rid of his coaches and replacing them. So I am curious about, like, would he do that as an offensive coordinator? My guess is if you went for continuity in year one and now the guy has a year of play calling experience, unless it's just god awful, why wouldn't you do it again? Like, you're gonna have now another coordinator in
Well, I
another
guess the
year.
question is, what's the evaluation of Grizzard? What's the
We don't
reason his
know.
offense has struggled? Is it because of injuries? Is
Well,
it because of play calling?
you'd have to factor in the injuries, right? I mean,
Well,
you can't just ignore that.
absolutely. I mean, if Baker's right shoulder is hurt and his knee is hurt, like, of course he's not throwing the ball very well. Like,
Well, right.
so are you going to blame Josh Grizzard for that? No.
And if he
And
has two guards that are out and he has a left
Mhm.
tackle that's missed a bunch of games.
I mean, it's going to be interesting, and we may never know the answer, unless the result is they fire Josh Grizzard. Like, when they do the autopsy on this season, whether it's after this week or after several weeks or after a Super Bowl, whatever it is,
Yeah.
How was everybody's performance? I mean, that's ultimately what they decide. Every player on the roster and every coach as well.
Everyone's being evaluated. That's right.
And what their feelings on Josh Grizzard is. Do they think he's gotten better throughout the season while the team got less healthy? Now they're getting guys back now. The other part is, guys are back. How healthy are they? Like, we know Tristan Wirfs isn't right.
No.
So you got both guards out. Your left tackle's not what he usually is. He's playing well, but not. He's not.
But he missed another game with a toe injury. So.
Exactly. Baker's banged up, and how many different injuries this year have been on the injury report.
And we don't. That's one of those. It feels to me like it could be like one of those hockey postseasons where you go, okay, now that the season's over, Baker was playing with a torn NCL, a torn ACL. You could start to get that. Rotator cuff, like, because I don't think we know, and certainly that's would affect his performance. But if it affects it to the degree where you can't function or win, then you need to make the change. You need to put him down and let him heal up. But
and here's the other thing we don't know: what does Baker think of the job Josh Grizzard did?
Well, we don't know that.
We know what publicly he's praised him, and of course he's going to. Like,
yeah, I mean,
but behind closed doors,
yeah,
we don't know that, and that may have some impact into it too, because Baker's going to be your quarterback next year.
Well, all you can look at are the results, right? And the results would tell you that he hasn't had the plays that have produced points, right? Now, some of that's execution, but a lot of times your execution is bad because the plays don't work. Like with the personnel, like, the trick to play calling is you got to hide your weaknesses, right? No team goes out there and says we got all pros at every position. So you have to be able to play away from your weaknesses into your strengths. And if you're not executing, it could be because what you're asking guys to do, if they're not starters, they can't do. Case in point. And I know you can't, it was kind of a 2-minute situation and you're trying to get guys out in the routes and things like that. But when you're in a must throw type situation, and some of this is unavoidable, right? But when you're in a must pass situation and you've got a rookie left tackle playing over there against a guy who knows how to get the quarterback down on the ground and is a premier pass rush look, as it is, when you're in that 2-minute situation, that the opposing team that's trailing is going to try to throw the ball, on every down because they have to. if you don't give that left tackle help, whether it's a running back chipping or a tight end, right, over on that side, if you don't do that and that quarterback gets sacked and fumbles the ball, is that I mean, yeah, the left tackle got beat, right? Um, but is that on the player or is that on you not scheming up, what you needed to scheme up in order to protect them? I mean, you know, Bradley Chubb is going to get there against many guys, right? But one on one in a pass rush situation, and he just flat out beats his man because that's who he is, and he's an all he's been you know one of a premier pass rusher in this league in the past. Like if that happens, that's kind of on you a little bit. Like you know Benjamin Chukwuma is probably not in a good situation there. Having to throw every down, and so what happens? Sack, fumble, game over. Right, third turnover. So that's on Grizzard too. Like all those things that happen don't just happen, in a vacuum. So I don't know how he'll be evaluated, but I think it'll happen quickly because I think first you have to deal with what you're going to do with Todd Bowles, and then your decision on Todd Bowles, and this happened with Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith wasn't fired the day that they lost their final game. They met with Jason Light all day after the season, and to the point where Lovey hadn't heard from Jason, right? And then when he finally did, it was, where you been all day kind of thing. And Jason was sort of like, well, they want to meet with you in the morning, Lovey. And I'll just tell you, it's not really going your way. It's like, what do you mean, meet me in the morning? I'll be cleaning up my office in 15 minutes. And he did. He knew he was fired at that point. And so he came down, packed his stuff, and was not happy about it. So, you know, but Lovey had a chance after the season to present his ideas like, okay, I know we got to get better on this side of the ball. I took over the defensive play calling at the end of the year. This is the guy I'm going to bring in as my coordinator. And again, if you can't sell it to the Glazers, if they don't see it getting better, then they're not going to go for it. And that's sort of what happened, you know, with Lovey Smith. So what is the plan? I think Bowles and, I guess to some degree, Jason Light will get a chance to convince the Glazers, here's how we're going to fix this. And if they don't like the plan, then they're going to make a change, But I don't, my personal belief, based on nothing, just a hunch, is that they don't want to change head coaches right now for whatever reason. But I think they believe in Todd. I think they recognize this is not the most talented team he's had. They can't explain the collapse like any of us can explain it, but I don't know that they're gonna fire him. And yet, if you watch those documentaries, you go, he is so gone. They can't go any further with this guy. He can't get him over the hump. Like all those reasons they fired people, um, you know, would seem to fit with Todd. But I don't know that. And you're right too. What if they do win on Saturday? And what if Atlanta loses to New Orleans and you get a home playoff game? And what if the Rams, who have struggled on the road, they've lost to Carolina on the road, they've lost to Atlanta on the road. What if they come in here and Stafford gives you 3 turnovers and you beat them in that
Well,
game?
it'd be more likely it would be the Seahawks or the
Or
Niners, I
49ers.
believe. Yeah.
But those are 2 teams you've
Yeah.
already beaten
Yep.
right here in Tampa. So you can't say, well, they're going to get killed. Do I think, having Brock Purdy, might be an advantage because you didn't have him the first time? Yeah, I do.
Yep.
But it's still the 49ers. It's still a team you beat.
Yep.
Seattle's still a team you beat. So you can't say they have no chance. They're in the game. But yeah, if that happens, if that transpires over this weekend, and look, I think Atlanta's a way better team than New Orleans, and I think they're playing really better right now. Although New Orleans has won a bunch in a row too. The funny thing is neither team has lost since they played Tampa. So something's got to give. But they're both playing with confidence right now. Shock me none, 0 if New Orleans wins that game. Would not shock me. I could see, the Bucs lose on Sunday and but for them losing, or on Saturday. Then you go to Sunday, and then New Orleans ends up beating Atlanta. You go like, well, all they had to do was win the game, and they'd have been in. I could see that. I could see the Bucks winning, and it coming down to the wire on the last second field goal on Sunday, and then somehow Atlanta wins and they're the champs. Like, there's a lot of ways you can cut this up, but this is dramatic for sure. And I think, and I know they couldn't do it, but I do think that it would have been better for fans and for these two teams in particular if that game was either concurrent or on the same day at least,
Mhm.
to where they would know, at the end of business on Saturday, you'll know who the champ is. Right now, unless the Bucks lose, you're not going to know. You're going to have to wait till Sunday.
All right, Robert emailed. So we were told that Baker Mayfield's teammates loved him and would run through a wall for him. Have you witnessed any of that admiration on the field lately?
Um, I mean, I think they get pretty excited when he does these crazy scrambles. Like, he had one the other day where a guy was all over his back and he kind of just flipped them off. I still think he's inspiring that way. I do. Now, when you're losing, right? And I think the teams have done a really good job with this since Detroit. They're spying on him. You're not getting those huge runs. You might get one or two here or there for a first down. I don't put much stock in reactions sometimes. I mean, sometimes they're relevant, but sometimes they're just not. It's like, oh, look how fired up those guys are. They really love their quarterback. Well, I still think they love their quarterback. I don't know what you're seeing per se that you would say, they're less than they've been in the past, but I still think they're behind this quarterback. I do. I think he's, a man of the people in that locker room. And I think they believe in him, but he's got to reward that belief. He's got to win, you know, he's got to win. So, are they behind him? Yeah. Is the magic worn off a little bit? Probably. And he just needs to, play better. Like, play better. The popular opinion in that locker room and everywhere else is going to rise and fall based on how you do it out there.
Mm-hmm.
If you have more interceptions and touchdowns, no one's going to like you. They're just not. And so he's got to play better, and you got to constantly earn that at that position every single day. Even quarterbacks that have won Super Bowls, can find themselves in a bad situation. But I think they still believe in Baker for the most part. I don't think there's any, now are they in love with him? Do they, are they carrying him to the next down on their shoulders? No. I think he's going to have to earn whatever he gets, but I know they don't dislike him, and I think in some cases they've helped him out.
We'll end on this one. Patrick had sent an email. He says, hello, gentlemen. Hope you and your family have a happy new year.
Mm-hmm.
Could the nostalgia of the team's 50th anniversary be the theme that led to the sticking with hometown players like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Zion McCollum, Luke Gedeke? They've severely limited the team's financial willingness to acquire top-end talent from other teams or make a splash trade for someone like Max Crosby. If the Glazers and Buccaneers decide to keep Todd Bowles, would it be A, the crop of available coaches is slim, or B, the Glazers simply forever the hand of Jason Light and didn't spend a fortune on free agency or trades? They knew from the outset that this team was lacking high-end skill at key positions, particularly on defense.
I think they do know that they were lacking. I do. I think they were saying, okay, we got to see what we have in Braswell. We got to see if Diaby can make another step. We got to see if, Servassier Dennis can be our inside linebacker. We got to see. We drafted these guys. We got to see what they can do. But I do think there was a general recognition that this was not, the 79 Steelers on defense. Like, they have obvious holes and limitations out there. Could they have played better? Yeah, I do think they could have played better. But I actually think the Glazers are smart enough and understand enough that they know there's not a ton of game records on that defense. Vita Vea is in his 30s. He might be the big closest thing you have to it. Antoine Winfield Jr., is going to made the Pro Bowl again. I don't know if he'll be all pro. But the other day, Todd Bowles used a word to describe him, which would have made my stomach turn if I were him, and it was babysit. He has had to babysit in the secondary a few times. I mean, this is pro football, man. You should have to babysit anybody. So yeah, I don't know, man. I think there is a general recognition that we're going with our draft picks. We're going with a team that is really devoid of free agents, with the exception of Reddick, who's kind of a flyer, 1 year hit wonder thing. If we hit it, great. I think that's a big. It's belief, but it's also, it's also not what we saw when they went for it, right? Like, I know what them going for it looks like. It looks like Tom Brady's years, right? Where there's nobody that's out there that that the Bucs don't say yes to, and I don't see that right now. Not that I know who he's asked for, but it's clear to me that free agency was not going to be something they invested heavily in this year. And that being the case, you better have a bunch of young rookies not only make this team, but be developed quickly into really good players. I mean, who are their only Pro Bowl players? It's guys like Tristan Wirfs and Winfield, right? Well, they haven't been drafted since what? It's been a minute, right? 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So if you haven't drafted a Pro Bowl player, it's like, and I was talking to this with Scott Reynolds the other day. It's like Jason White has drafted a lot of starters, but no stars, right? Outside of those two Pro Bowlers and maybe Hall of Fame players, he's not really
Mike
done
Evans
well.
a long time ago, but
Mike's a long time ago, but I'm just saying, recently the last two Pro Bowl players he's drafted was 2020. You should have more guys in the Pro Bowl than 2020. I think at this stage, that's 5 drafts, and those 2 guys are great, and they may wear gold jackets one day. But you drafted a lot of guys that start for you, a lot of guys that are some are even solid, but where are your Pro Bowl players? Where's your best players in the league at their positions? You got guys, right? You have just a guy, Jag players, we used to call them. But where's your stars? And that's, it's fair criticism. All right, great questions. You can send those to us anytime at SportsTayTB. You can reach me at NFL Stroud. Email address is rstroud@tampabay.com. Hope you guys have a very, very happy and please safe New Year. Be careful out there if you're going to go out in a boat to restaurants or anything like that.
Are
or
you
to parties.
Canadian? Did you say a boot?
Yeah, I did on purpose. I thought it was cool. I love the way Canadians say a boot. An organization.
Speaking of organization, the Lightning play back-to-back games the next 2 days. To this afternoon, 4 p.m. Eastern against the Ducks, and then New Year's night at 7 p.m. against the Kings.
Home or away?
They're in California. So
they're in California. They're California dreaming? Okay.
Yes. And Eric Chernak could return this afternoon.
Woo!
He was a full participant in practice. He's missed 17 games, so he might be back on the back end.
Well, I think if you go to the West Coast, you get a bunch points. That's what I think.
And then the college football quarterfinals. Ohio State, Miami's tonight, and then 3 games tomorrow.
Now, do you think Miami, who I've not been impressed with, I know they made it this far. Do you think they have a relative shot at hanging with Ohio State at all?
Hanging?
I think Ohio State's going to kill them, is what I think.
I believe that too.
Yeah.
I think Ohio State's the best team. I know they lost Indiana, but
boy, it's going to be interesting though if those two end up. I don't know if they can play in the championship against each other.
That would be
the
champion. That would be the championship.
Championship game, yeah. That'd be a hell of a game. One hell of a game. Love to see that. But yeah, fired up about college football playoffs. Of course, we've got bowl games going on. The Relia Quest is coming up
this afternoon at noon.
How about that?
Iowa Vandy, Diego Pavia.
Freaking did it again.
He did,
Mr. McVay.
Yeah. I'll be over in Orlando this afternoon for Michigan, Texas at 3:00. So.
Oh, you're going to see your Wolverines, huh?
I am, yeah.
Who's coaching those guys right now?
Well, Biff Poggi is the interim.
Poggi, that's right.
Yeah. But Kyle Whittingham is there.
Is your former coach still in jail, or I guess he bonded out?
Who knows?
I don't know where that situation is.
Yeah.
Yeah. You like the hire?
I do. I don't. I just hope I like him. He's a really good coach. I think he'll do good.
Older guy, right?
Yeah, 66.
Yeah.
I don't know if he can compete with Ohio State.
That's the one thing I would question.
But I don't know. I don't know of all the candidates you had. I don't know any of them were slam dunks. So
yeah, that's true.
So like I said, I'm not. I like the hire.
Yeah,
I think he'll do really well.
Mm-hmm.
Can he beat Ohio State consistently and recruit against them? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Harbaugh
it's not saying
beat
he
him
can't.
for 5 years, so
yeah. Well, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but
I
like
he's
him
a really
a lot,
good coach, though.
I like him a lot better than Sharon, and I didn't like the Sharon Moore hire. I know why they did it. I understood why they did it for continuity and everything else about it.
Yeah, I think when you do that, you make a mistake. I'm up with a, and I'm not. This isn't about Grizzard. People might make this leap, but like, I think you get the best people no matter where you find them.
Well, but Ryan Day at Ohio State was that way. When Urban stepped down, they promoted Ryan Day up.
I understand that.
No, I think his first couple of seasons, he had some learning curves to go through. I mean, he still was doing really good, but
yeah,
I think he's a much better coach now than he was 5 years ago.
Yeah,
and that's just part of the first time head coach that. But Sharon Moore was getting a lot of credit for. Well, he beat Ohio State. He beat Penn State. When Jim was suspended. Well, Jim was coaching all week in practice. He just didn't coach the game. It wasn't like it wasn't like he was away from the program for a month. And
are we sure he didn't coach the game?
Well, who knows? I don't.
I mean, communications being what they are. I mean, wire me through the headset.
Like I was hopeful for Sharon, but I wasn't thrilled with the hire. Like like I said, but I understood why they did it.
Yeah.
I never thought that would the way it would end. It was how it would end. But
right.
Like, that part, crazy, but.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be interesting. There's a lot of news we didn't get to, but that's okay. We'll talk about it next week.
Yeah. Well, we got a show Friday. We're going to take
tomorrow.
Take
we'll talk
off,
about it tomorrow. Yeah.
But Friday we'll have a preview of the Bucks and Panthers and the weekend.
Bucks, Panthers. Oh.
And we'll recap the college football playoff and.
This is going to be such a screwed up week. It's just, I can see myself writing, hey, the Bucks won, but we have no idea what it means. Stay tuned in tomorrow, folks.
Think about this. So Levante David.
Yep. Last game.
Good chance he retires at the end of the season.
I would say this, and we didn't get that into it with Mike Evans, the whole bobblehead thing. Yep. I think Mike Evans could continue playing and not play here.
That's possible.
And I wouldn't have said that because he had this decision a few years ago, and at the end of the day, his wife Ashley just said, "Well, let's just stay here." You know what? Here's the thing: if I'm going to play and I'm Mike Evans, Levante's most likely going to retire, right? Mm-hmm. I know what's in that receiver room. There's a lot of talent in that room, young talent, right? And I can still fit in there very well. But, however, having been through this year. Where I've been hurt and where the team has collapsed and potentially may not make the playoffs. I'm not playing for numbers. I've got my Hall of Fame numbers. I'm tied with Jerry Rice. I'm good with my career, right? I'm only playing for a ring. And if you're going to tell me that Mike Evans really believes that the best chance to get a ring is in Tampa Bay, I tell you, I don't see how that could be. And the two teams that were after him the last time, Houston and Kansas City. All right, well, let's look at it. The Chiefs
would both love him.
Would love him, and he'd be a huge player for Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes coming off an ACL and an LCL, supposed to be ready by the opener, but who knows, right? On the other hand, that team that's just 90 miles out of his hometown, the Houston Texans, who also talked to him the last time he was a free agent, they're for real. They're going to stay relevant because their defense is incredible. And defense travels. And defense is not just going to go away. So, you've got a monster of a team that I think could shock some people in this playoffs. So you wonder about that because these are teams he looked into the last time. And he could say, well, I'd love to finish my career in Tampa, but frankly, I don't know that we're going to get there. I did this and I re-signed and, what is the offer going to be? Is it going to be $20.5 million, even though he's had all these injuries this time? That's going to tell a lot too. So we could be looking, and I don't think it's not trying to be hyperbolic. You could be looking at the last game by Levante David and Mike Evans.
But the weird part, and for Levante, maybe Mike too, if the Bucks win Saturday, they'll leave the field not knowing if it's their final game in
right.
Tampa Bay. Or Levante David maybe his
or
career.
in their career. Yeah.
They have to wait another day to know if they get
how
another game.
strange would that be? Like, you're ready to hang it up after your last game, but you don't know when that was.
Yeah. Like, you walk off the field and you got to wait 24 hours or 21 hours. Whatever.
That'd be agonizing. Just agonizing to me.
Yeah. And we're making some assumptions, but.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good assumption, though.
With Levante, for sure.
Yeah. Mike, I couldn't speak to. I don't know enough. I mean, Mike might just say, "What are you talking about, man?" I didn't say I was ever going to leave the Bucs. But if you're a free agent, you're a free agent. And he's been down that road before. So, and the Houston Texans won like 8 in a row. You know, I don't want, like, that's the team. It's like, oh, there's one team you don't want to play. Yeah, that'd be them. That'd be them, man. They absolutely can just stuff you on defense. It's crazy. So we'll be back to talk about all that. Please have a safe and a very happy new year. Ringing in with whoever you're ringing in with, Ryan Seacrest or whatever. I'll probably be doing that. But make sure you're safe and get back here and listen to us in 2026. Thanks to a lot of people. Mike. I'm calling you Mike now. Steve, I had a lot of people. I don't know why. I had a lot of people come up to me. When I say a lot, they were all Bucs fans. But many people come up to me when I went out to this Mike Evans deal. That's why I called you Mike. At Fifth Third Bank, and stopped me and said how much they enjoy the podcast. And I can't not tell you how great that makes us feel, because we're, grinding at this every night, 5 days a week. And, you forget that there are so many people out there that do listen and enjoy the podcast. And it's always great to hear from you when I'm out in a boat and people do come up and say how much they enjoy you and me.
Well, don't just stop and say, send us a note on social media, email, let us know.
Yeah,
ask questions. Ask mailbag questions. We love those.
Yeah, participate. You can also, I think you can go somewhere and leave a comment or a grade, rating, something like that.
Oh, where your podcast, rate us, give us 5 stars, all that good stuff.
All that helps. So, mostly just thanks for listening. We know there's a lot of you out there, and I've been stopped by so many, which makes me feel good. Makes me feel really good. So, thanks for that. Okay, we'll be back tomorrow to preview the Bucs versus the Carolina Panthers one more time with feeling. And we'll do that tomorrow on the podcast. Thanks for listening. As always, for Steve Versnick, I'm Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times. Have a very happy and safe new year. We'll see you in 2026.